Chapter 407. The Empress let two palace attendants support Lu Qingdi as he left. According to the usual situation, there was still some time before the banquet ended. Moreover, without Lu Qingdi sitting, the people below actually drank even more happily, so no one would care about whether Lu Qingdi stayed or left. After Lu Qingdi left, the Empress also got up and left. After sitting for so long, her whole body felt uncomfortable. If she did not go back and rest, she estimated that she would not be able to hold on. She could not attend, but she could not, because her illness had already affected their faction. If she did not show up and let people know that she was not bad, she estimated that this effect would expand. In fact, at this time, whether it was the Empress or the entire faction, they had already realized that the position that the Empress occupied was too heavy. This was originally the result that the Empress wanted, but there was a big premise. The Empress had to be healthy. This time, her sudden illness undoubtedly gave them a head-on blow. The Empress's age was about the same as Lu Qingdi, but because she took good care of herself, she had always been relatively healthy. She did not think of this at all, but now, if you worked so hard and died before you achieved your goal, that kind of feeling was not worth mentioning. However, at this time, even if the Empress wanted to adjust and weaken her own existence, it was already too late. Therefore, she could only hold on. After the Empress left, Qin Shu Fei also left. Even before this, she was indifferent to the various toasts from the women with official titles. Because she was temporarily in charge of the Phoenix Seal, and the Empress's health had not recovered, her status naturally rose. There were many who wanted to curry favor with her, but unfortunately, Qin Shu Fei did not accept them at all. At Jingwan's table, there were only two people, her and Li Hongyuan. Only the princes who had not been bestowed the title of prince would share table. As for the other adults, each person occupied a table. 10 people to a table. 1 Wang Ya, 1 Wang Fei, plus the 2 Wang Fei. There were still 6 seats left. As of now, no family had 6 children. However, it seemed that Jin Xinwang's table was the most idle. The other tables, no matter how you looked at it, it was a bit deserted. Naturally, it was very irksome in all aspects. However, Jingwan was now thick-skinned and big-hearted. She ignored him, not to mention Li Hongyuan. Jingwan retracted her gaze and looked at Li Hongyuan. With just one look, Li Hongyuan already knew what she was going to do. Li Hongyuan unhurriedly reached out his chopsticks to pick up a certain dish and put it into his mouth. Their table was cold and cheerless. Even if someone came to toast, they would also hurriedly leave after a toast. No one would linger to exchange greetings. Firstly, Jin Xinwang did not have that value. Secondly, the reputation of the living king of hell was too great. Whether he was happy or angry was not something that could be said for fun. Jingwan also continued to eat. Although it had been quite a long time, she ate a little occasionally. Her stomach was really empty. This method was sent into the palace by the prince. What else? If it's all cold dishes, Princess Consort will have to starve for the whole day. Li Hongyuan said matter-of-factly. He did not hide that he was doing this for his wife. Fortunately, Li Hongyuan and Jingwan's voices were not loud. Otherwise, Jingwan would become the target of public criticism. Ben Wang is going to change clothes. Li Hongyuan flicked his sleeves and got up, leaving Qianshan Hall. As the number 1 attendant, Mu Gonggong naturally followed. At this time, there were many people going in and out. Li Hongyuan swaggered out, so it was not strange. Jingwan quietly ate at this time. At this time, it was still very early. If she did not eat something, she would suffer later. Old Madame Luo could not leave at this time. The one who accompanied old Madame Luo into the palace was Jingwan's eldest aunt, Wang Shi. If Jingwan wanted to see her birth mother, Zhang Shi, at this palace banquet, she still had to work harder for her father, who was determined to make progress. Speaking of which, it was not impossible to bring Xiao Bei along, but old Madame Luo did not do so because it was not necessary. Moreover, entering the palace on such a cold day was really torturous. Jingwan inadvertently looked up and saw the drunk, former princess, Wei Yining being helped out of Qianshan Hall by a servant girl. Jingwan naturally withdrew her gaze. At this time, she was pretending to be drunk, but soon she would be really drunk. Jingwan suddenly looked forward to the good show later. As expected, one who is close to ink will be stained black. Li Honyuan returned after another quarter of an hour. In half an hour, there were many things that could be done, things that could not be done, and things that could be done. Jingwan was slightly surprised. Didn't you say that you would leave this matter to me? Li Honyuan raised his eyebrows. Why? Is Princess Consort blaming Ben Wang for competing with you in front of Imperial Father? Jingwan immediately understood. She went to see Lu Qingdi, but she did not know what purpose he had in mind. Did he advance or perfect her plan? When the banquet was about to end, the snow outside stopped. Not only that, the sky turned sunny very quickly. So Lu Qingdi's birthday this year was indeed a good day. Since the sky was sunny, they could naturally continue with the entertainment activities in the afternoon. The 4 major opera troupes in the capital had all entered the palace, and they had specially prepared a performance for Lu Qingdi's birthday. In addition, there were many different operas from the 4 troupes. With all of them gathered in one place, it was needless to say how exciting it would be. Jingwan did not really like it, but she was looking forward to it. The stage was set up in the Imperial Garden, and it was several times bigger than the usual stage. As expected of the 4 most famous opera troupes in the capital, they did not disappoint. The people who knew Qi Yuan's operas the best were naturally the former Wei. Surprisingly, many of the envoys from other countries also liked it. Although in Jingwan's eyes, those people did not understand it at all. They were just cheering like ghosts. When no one else was around, they cheered loudly, and their voices were surprisingly loud. They thought that they were sincere, but the Qi Yuan naturally thought that they were vulgar, barbaric, and rude. The difference between their backgrounds was too big. It was indeed an insurmountable gap. 2 hours after the performance, Lu Qingdi appeared. In fact, he was not very drunk. Of course, even if he was drunk, it was still not clean for a man and a woman to lie together naked. Moreover, Jingwan noticed that there was an unusual mark on Lu Qingdi's neck. It was obvious that the deed was done, but at this moment, the men's and women's seats were separated. She could not communicate with her husband. Someone came in a hurry, found the former Wei Crown Prince, and whispered something in his ear. The former Wei Crown Prince's face was so dark that he almost overturned the short table in front of him. He sat down, as if he was weighing the pros and cons, and also as if he was suppressing his anger. Then, he suddenly stood up. Your Majesty the Emperor of Qi Yuan, shouldn't you give me an explanation for this matter? Lu Qingdi looked at him impatiently. He was also very annoyed that he had slept with a woman for no reason, especially when he missed his lover deeply. Obviously, he was drunk and did not know how it happened. Logically speaking, when he was drunk, even if he did not rest in the bedchamber, there would only be people guarding him. There was no reason for anyone to break into his resting place. In fact, no one had entered. It was just that he was drunk and did not have a good rest. He did not know why he ran out. Not only did he run out, but he also slept with a woman. He had sent people to investigate the specific situation. If he just slept with a palace maid or a junior of a minister, it was not a big deal. He did not care about the former. As for the latter, he would just give her a place according to her status. But it just happened that she was the princess of an enemy country. He could do whatever he wanted in his own territory. He did not think that he was wrong. But she was a princess of another country. She should have someone to take care of her when she was drunk. Why did she wander around? Anyone would have a conspiracy theory, let alone an emperor. Therefore, Lu Qingdi's face was gloomy. Your Highness, you don't need to worry. Once the matter is cleared up, we will naturally do what needs to be done. However, whether I give you an explanation or you give me an explanation is another matter altogether. Everyone could see that Lu Qingdi was in a terrible mood. The former Wei Crown Prince's face was also not very good. However, he did not flare up at this time. Although he was an envoy and represented Great Wei, he was only a prince in the end. In other small countries, he was naturally high and mighty. In the face of a country that was on the same level as Great Wei, he did not dare to resist. After all, only his father could talk to the other party on the same level. If it was said that Lu Qingdi was a conspiracy theory, then wasn't this former Wei eldest prince also a conspiracy theory? They were in someone else's territory, but something happened to his little sister. Everything was over, and he only received the news. If it was said that his good little sister slept together with the person she fancied, then it was possible that she threw herself into his arms. However, the other party was Qi Yuan Emperor, a rotten old man who could beat Yi Ning's grandfather in terms of age. What kind of temperament Yi Ning had, he was very clear. That ambition was higher than the heavens. Would she choose Lu Qingdi, this kind of grievance, for the sake of not going to a barbarian land for political marriage? It was impossible even if the sun rose from the west. In addition, the matter of Jin Wang of Qi Yuan was basically a done deal, in his opinion. It was impossible for her to make trouble by herself. Without a doubt, it must be Qi Yuan's side. If it was not Lu Qingdi, then it was someone else. Eldest imperial brother, what happened? The former Wei Crown Prince made a deeply concerned expression at this time. The former Wei Crown Prince did not even look at him. Your Majesty the Emperor of Qi Yuan, please allow this prince to leave first. Without waiting for Lu Qingdi to respond, he flicked his sleeves and left. The former Wei Crown Prince was not willing to be treated like this. He followed without saying anything. Lu Qingdi was slapped in the face like this, but in the end he did not flare up. However, his face became more and more gloomy. Some people seemed to be dignified without being angry. As the emperor, once he was angry, although it was not as terrifying as millions of corpses, it could be imagined that at this time, absolutely no one would dare to rashly come forward and provoke him. There was no need to think about what the former Wei Crown Prince wanted to do. He had to know the cause and effect from Princess Yi Ning. Because of this incident, Lu Qingdi must have strengthened his defenses. At this time, some people could no longer casually walk around the palace. Therefore, even if the former Wei Crown Prince went to find her, he would at most understand the situation from Princess Yi Ning. Although not many people knew about this matter, there was no need to hide it. Moreover, this kind of thing had always been a loss for women. Lu Qingdi's chest was filled with depression, so he did not give the order to keep it a secret. Therefore, after he came over, before the play was finished, many people knew about this matter, especially the imperial concubines and the various princes. Most people did not have any reaction on the surface, but their hearts were different. It was just that their thoughts were in different directions. However, not many people really cared about this matter. After all, in essence, this involved the relationship between the countries and had nothing to do with their internal disputes. However, at the male guest seats, there were many glances at Li Hongyuan. At the female guest seats, Jingwan suffered almost the same treatment. However, no matter how you looked as the person involved, you ignored it. You felt powerless, as if you punched cotton. Lu Qingdi was in charge with a gloomy face, so the lively atmosphere was naturally less. The singing was still on the stage, but the overall atmosphere was as if no one was listening to it. In this way, the troupe was naturally trembling with fear. They did not know what the problem was, so they became more cautious and restrained those who were not on the stage. At this time, they did not want to be meritorious, but they did not want to be wrong. The troop leaders repeatedly warned their subordinates not to have any thoughts that they should not have. After all, in their situation, if one person had an accident, it would often affect everyone. The ins and outs of the whole matter were investigated very quickly. It was the commander of the Imperial Guards, along with several Imperial Guards and Lu Qingdi's personal attendants. The conclusion was only one word: coincidence. Lu Qingdi was supported arrest. Those who waited on him were his personal attendants and palace maids. Later on, there were people who went to see him. If they were not concubines, then they were princes. Basically, they did not say anything and did nothing. Jin Wang stayed the longest, but that was because Lu Qingdi kept holding his hand and did not let go. Moreover, after Jin Wang left, there were also people who went to see him. Then, Lu Qingdi, who was sleeping, suddenly woke up and went outside by himself. He did not allow people to follow him. For Lu Qingdi, this point was easy to explain. Then, he met the similarly drunk Princess Yi Ning, who was strolling around. According to the people around Princess Yi Ning, their princess also did not allow people to follow her, but they basically stayed far away. There were also the Imperial Guards who stood guard in their positions. This could prove that in this process, no one approached her. The two drunkards bumped into each other, and then inexplicably rolled together. Fortunately, they chose a nearby palace and not in the open. Things developed too quickly. By the time the attendants arrived, the clothes had already been taken off, and they entered the main topic. Princess Ning did not struggle and did not shout. On the contrary, she was very enthusiastic, not at all like she was forced. If it was not for the blood that fell, one would really suspect the identity of this princess. It was also because of this that Lu Chengdi's personal attendants stopped Princess Ning's servant girls. After all, their master was having fun. They only had the role of assisting. Not to mention disturbing, all external factors had to be eliminated. They also had to quickly get a brazier to warm up the room, so as to prevent their master from catching a cold. All suspicious things were checked, and more than once. The final result was the same. To get such a result, although it was not a conspiracy, but Lu Chengdi's gloomy mood was not much better. Because he knew very well why he went out, because he dreamed of his Bayan, but what happened later, he really did not know. Perhaps it was because he was in a trance and saw the wrong person. And the former Wei Crown Prince did not get any useful information from Princess Ning. He carefully interrogated Princess Ning's servant girls, but did not find anything wrong. The servant girls were all brought from Great Wei, and there was absolutely no possibility of them being bribed. Princess Ning just kept crying. According to the Crown Prince's understanding of her, she was really bullied. She had already started to make a scene. It was clear that she still remembered something, and perhaps the whole process was clear. The former Wei Crown Prince looked at her sinisterly. At this time, he really wanted to tear her alive. Lu Chengdi left people to serve Princess Ning. Princess Ning's servant girls did not dare to speak in detail, but they did not have such scruples. Moreover, by Lu Chengdi's side, they had heard a lot of Lu Chengdi's women corner and did not have any taboo. It was simply vivid and vivid. A woman who really did not know what was going on, even if she was drunk, would not be so unrestrained. Therefore, even if there was blood, it made people suspect that this princess's body was not clean at all. This seemed to make people guess the reason why this princess was exiled. Because she did something ugly. The former Wei capital could not tolerate her, so they simply made use of trash. Although they probably only expressed the first half of the meaning. In the ears of the former Wei people, they naturally filled in the second half. Shut up for this princess. Princess Ning roared with a ferocious face. That was definitely her sore spot. The eunuch was startled, but then he laughed. Princess, why are you angry? No matter what the princess is, it's fine as long as our emperor likes her. In other words, the matter was already decided. Pleasing Lu Chengdi was the only way out. Unfortunately, the eunuch was very clear that this former Wei princess had definitely incurred the disgust of his master. Even if she was given a higher position, she would definitely be very miserable in the future if she did not tuck her tail between her legs. Although under normal circumstances, she would not easily lose her life. Get out. The former Wei Crown Prince rubbed his brows and pointed at the door. The eunuch was very obedient this time, but the door was wide open and there were imperial guards guarding outside. The former Wei Fifth Crown Prince was impatient to continue waiting. He sneered and directly left. He was too lazy to care about this trivial matter. The former Wei Crown Prince looked at Princess Ning. Speak, do you want to die or live now? Chapter 408. The former Wei Crown Prince looked at Princess Ning. Tell me, do you want to live or die? Princess Ning, whose eyes were filled with hatred and who looked like she was crying pitifully, was stunned when she heard this. She forgot to cry and also forgot to maintain the emotions in her eyes. At this moment, her thoughts were blank for a moment. After a moment, panic appeared on Princess Ning's face. She grabbed the former Wei Crown Prince's sleeve. Her tears were like broken beads. Imperial brother, enough. What are you crying for? What's the use of crying now? You are now one of the Qi Yuan Emperor's people. You should know that the previous plan is useless. You can be obedient now, and I will do my best to fight for a higher position for you. There are still 2 vacancies among the Qi Yuan Emperor's 4 concubines. If you continue to cry and make a fuss, you will only provoke the Qi Yuan Emperor's disgust. You know what will happen to you. If you really don't want to live, it's good that you die now. After all, you are our Wei Crown Princess. If you are humiliated and die in Qi Yuan, our Wei Crown Princess can more or less use this as an excuse to make trouble for the Qi Yuan Emperor. If we do it properly, we can gain a lot of benefits. Princess Yi Ning was in despair. How can you treat me like this? How can you? You are a group of inhumane bastards. Bastards, the former Wei Crown Prince was indifferent. There is no family affection in the royal family. You should have realized this earlier. Also, let me tell you, if you want to have a better life in the future, put away your current moral integrity. Emperor Qiyuan is the sovereign of the 9 and 5. The woman who was slept with by him, regardless of whether it was voluntary or forced, in his eyes, being slept with by him is a great favor. You look like you can't wait to directly enter the cold palace. Although Princess Yi Ning was indignant, she gradually restrained her emotions and was no longer hysterical. The former Wei Crown Prince sneered, "It's good that you have thought it through." This younger sister naturally didn't want to die. If she really had the courage, she should have died when she was still in the Wei. Following the Emperor of Qi Yuan is not necessarily a bad thing. Other than being a little older, in other aspects, isn't it better than the powerless Jin Wang? Meaning, you are young and beautiful. You have an advantage that others don't have. If you can make the Emperor of Qi Yuan happy, not only will he favor you, even if he values you a little, you will still be able to live a life of luxury. You have always been smart, and you are well aware of the intrigue in the palace. You don't need me to teach you what to do. Princess Yi Ning was unwilling and indignant. However, ever since she had been chased out of the capital of the Great Wei, she was no longer so naive and followed her heart. Moreover, people of the royal family might be born with the ability to weigh the pros and cons and knew how to play politics. Based on all these factors, Princess Yi Ning was also very clear about her current situation. But when she thought of Jin Wang and then thought of the Emperor of Qi Yuan, there was such a difference between heaven and earth. No matter how she thought about it, it was hard for her to calm down. Are we just going to let it go like this? I was clearly tricked. Then why don't you tell me? How did you get tricked? As long as you can tell me a suspicious point, I will help you investigate it to the end. Yi Ning, ever since you entered the palace, you have always been with us. You have never come into contact with the people of Qi Yuan. You ate and drank the same things as us. Even when you got drunk and left Qianqian Hall, you did not leave the line of sight of your servant girl. Tell me, what is the problem? Moreover, before you entered the palace, I already told you not to casually walk around in places like Qi Yuan's palace. Do you still think that this is the imperial palace of the Great Wei, where you can casually walk around? Towards the end, the former Wei eldest prince's face was full of haze. Princess Yi Ning mumbled and did not speak. In fact, she basically remembered the entire process. Although she felt that there was something strange about it, she could not tell what the problem was. I will take care of the rest. You stay here obediently and do what you need to do. If you make any more trouble, you can just wait to fend for yourself. After that, the former Wei eldest prince flicked his sleeves and left. For disobedient people, it was always necessary to teach them a lesson before they would learn. In reality, it did not matter to him who his sister followed. He was just annoyed that she was disobedient and caused trouble. The former Wei eldest prince returned to the stage in the imperial garden. Compared to when he left, his anger had eased a lot. Your Majesty the Emperor of Qi Yuan, about my sister, enough. Lu Qingdi waved his hand and interrupted him. Send someone to write a decree. Princess Yi Ning of the Great Wei will be conferred the title of virtuous imperial concubine. She will be given the main hall of Yihe Palace. He did not even turn his head. However, everyone knew who he was talking to. However, Lu Qingdi's decisiveness shocked many people. Those who did not know about the imperial noble consort and knew about the previous events were shocked that Lu Qingdi treated Princess Yi Ning too well. Especially those concubines other than Empress Sun, noble consort Su, and noble consort Qin. They almost tore the handkerchiefs in their hands. The thing that they could not get no matter how hard they tried was easily obtained by a princess of another country. Just because she was a princess? Obviously, these people were blinded by jealousy. They were completely finished. What kind of attitude did Lu Qingdi have before? As for the former Wei eldest prince, it was more like there was a lump in his throat. He could not spit it out or swallow it. It was very uncomfortable. He had thought a lot on the way here. He had basically made up his mind on how to fight for the greatest benefits for his side. However, Lu Qingdi's Taishang did not wait for him to speak, and everything was settled. He had strength, but nowhere to use it. There was no sense of accomplishment. Was the dust settled? How could it be? Li Hanyuan picked up the teacup and took a sip. The good show was yet to come. However, Li Hanyuan did not care. He was still a bit lazy and watched the show casually. As for how much he watched, probably only he himself knew. After all, the people of other countries, except for the former Wei, did not know that Lu Qingdi had slept with Princess Yining. Sure enough, the leader of the West Han tribe and the bulliest person beside him, the person who did not go up because of Yizhihai's strength, both stood up with a rare anger and even ruthlessness. Your Majesty the Emperor of Qi Yuan, eldest prince of the Great Wei, what do you mean by this? They were almost gnashing their teeth. Lu Qingdi frowned. His eyes were filled with confusion. The former Wei eldest prince was also puzzled at first. However, he thought of a possibility. Suddenly, he felt like he was about to explode. He was cursing in his heart. Yining's marriage partner was the West Han tribe. Now, it seemed that the court had already communicated with the West Han tribe. However, they did not tell him. Thus, he did not consider the West Han tribe at all. Originally, if the West Han tribe did not know, everything would be fine. But now, the former Wei eldest prince only wanted to vomit blood. https:///11/11807/7970615. Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website. M. Chapter 409. Lu Qingdi was naturally unhappy to be hated for no reason, so he had to ask for the reason. That tall and sturdy Xiongnu man sneered. Great Wei's emperor and my king wrote a letter, wanting to marry their princess Yining to the Xiongnu to establish friendly diplomatic relations between the two countries. Today, His Majesty Qiyuan Emperor actually bestowed Princess Yining as a consort. What is the reason? In fact, if this matter had nothing to do with him, he would not be so angry. The problem was that Princess Yining was originally prepared for him. Otherwise, he probably would not have come to Qiyuan this time. As King Li of the Right Valley, he had royal blood and great power. How could he be played like this? Originally, in the eyes of King Li of the Right Valley, Princess Yining looked delicate, but compared to other people, he preferred women from Qiyuan. He had abducted many from Qiyuan's border, and more than 10 had fallen into his hands. Therefore, he wanted to have a taste of Qiyuan's noble women. Unfortunately, the former Wei and Qiyuan had the same heritage, and the former Wei imperial family was very close to the people of Qiyuan. It could be said that this was exactly what he wanted. He was only King Li of the Right Valley, and his status was still a little low for a princess of a big country. However, when he brought her back, he would have the final say on who she would marry. When King Li of the Right Valley saw Princess Yining, it was completely in line with his imagination. To some extent, he had already regarded Princess Yining as his woman. Now, he was told that Princess Yining had become the concubine of the Emperor of Qiyuan. How could he not be angry? When everyone heard this, their hearts were in their mouths. Of course, those who were completely unrelated to this matter were happy to watch a good show. Everyone was waiting for Lu Qingdi to be angry, but Lu Qingdi was much calmer than expected. He just looked at the crown prince of former Wei coldly. The former Wei is preparing to marry one woman to two people. It's a good plan. There was no obvious anger, and his tone was flat, as if he was just stating a simple fact. But the more he was like this, the more it made people feel at a loss. After all, sometimes, when emotions were completely expressed, it was better for people to take the next step according to the other party's emotions. If they did not reveal anything and could not guess, they might do something wrong. Thus, the crown prince of former Wei could not stop himself from breaking out in a cold sweat on this cold day. Emperor of Qi Yuan, there is a misunderstanding. At this time, he could not care less about the West Xiong people, not only because they were now in Qi Yuan's territory, but also because the Great Wei and Qi were neighbors and had nothing to do with the Xiong people. The reason why the former Wei chose the West Xiongnu was not without the intention of joining forces with the West Xiongnu to divide up the Qiyuan. After all, no matter which of the two countries it was impossible for them to swallow the Qiyuan for themselves. Misunderstanding? It's fine to say that what happened before was a coincidence, but you've been eyeing my son since a long time ago. Is this a misunderstanding? Don't tell me that the former Wei has the intention of forming a marriage alliance with the West Xiong people, and you even brought your princess out this time. Lu Qingdi's words were full of mockery. However, after thinking about it carefully, this matter was indeed suspicious. Just as Lu Qingdi said, if they had already negotiated, then it would be impossible for Princess Yining of the former Wei to fall in love with Prince Jin of Qi Yuan to happen. After all, if they did not communicate with the West Xiong people, they would not know about Princess Yining, so there was no possibility that the West Xiong people were lying. Then, either the envoys of the former Wei really did not know about this matter, or the people of the former Wei acted on their own after arriving at Qi Yuan. The former situation was pure nonsense. The West Xiong Palace was much further away from the capital of the Qi Yuan than the capital of the former Wei. In terms of time, if the West Xiong people knew about this matter, it would be impossible for the people of the former Wei not to know about it. As for the latter, even the 3 members of the royal family would not dare to disobey their father. The most reasonable explanation was that Princess Yining knew about everything and did not want to go to that barbarian land to suffer, so she wanted to stay in Qi Yuan and acted on her own initiative. As for why the first prince of the former Wei did not try to erase this matter, but instead secretly helped Princess Yining, no one would believe that he loved his sister too much. It could only be that he helped Princess Yining achieve her wish, so he could gain more benefits. The first prince of the former Wei could not speak of his bitterness. To be honest, he really did not know that he had already reached an agreement with the West Xiong people. Otherwise, he would have kept a close eye on Princess Yining from the beginning and would not let her cause any trouble. But in the end, everything was too late. Even if the West Xiong people had arrived 2 days earlier, as long as they heard that Princess Yining had fallen in love with Prince Jin, they would not be indifferent. Then, the matter could still be salvaged. In fact, as long as Princess Yining did not sleep with him, there was still room for negotiation. But the former Wei Crown Prince cursed in his heart. Since they'd already reached an agreement, why didn't they directly send him to the West Han tribe? Why did they have to send him to Qi Yuan? Wasn't that just looking for trouble? Naturally, there are also people who were furious that this matter was concealed from them. Your Majesty the Emperor of Qi Yuan, this matter is indeed... Lu Qingdi waved his hand. There is no need to explain this matter to Zhen. Your Princess Yining is already Zhen's woman. This is a fact that cannot be changed. Otherwise, you can bring her corpse back. He was the emperor. His woman, whether he liked it or not, was his. Even if she was thrown to a corner to rot, he could not give it to others, unless she was dead. The first prince of the former Wei choked on a mouthful of old blood, but there was nothing he could do. In this situation, even if Princess Yining was really dead, it was worthless. Now that Lu Qingdi had received tangible benefits, he did not pursue this matter further. However, the West Xiong people were not so easy to deal with. Even if they could not get their hands on the first Wei, they were bound to take a piece of flesh from the first Wei. However, considering that the West Xiong people and the Great Wei were separated by Qi Yuan to the south and several small and medium-sized countries and the North Xiong people to the north, no matter how much they argued, it was impossible for them to directly start a war. Thus, the first prince of the former Wei breathed a sigh of relief. However, even so, the matters that followed were still enough to make him badly battered. Moreover, after returning to the Great Wei, some people would not easily let him off. The West Xiong people worshiped brawn, but it did not mean that they were simple-minded. They still knew what attitude they should take. After a few simple words from Lu Qingdi, they finally knew who the culprit was. Moreover, The first prince of the former Wei obviously treated Qi Yuan differently, which naturally angered them even more. This caused the first prince of the former Wei to be constantly busy dealing with the West Xiong people before he left Qi Yuan's capital. At this time, the West Xiong people began to sharpen their swords and prepared to cause trouble for the first Wei. Unexpectedly, with a bang, something was thrown on the table of the West Xiong people's chairman's seat, knocking over a plate of refreshments. It was a wine cup. Looking around, Jin Xinhuang looked over with cold eyes and an expressionless face. Have you all forgotten what day it is today? Either postpone this matter or immediately get out of the Qi Yuan's imperial palace. https:///11/1180/7/8011744. Chapter 410. Therefore, the king of hell was indeed the king of hell. When he was angry, he didn't care who you were. If it were anyone else, even Lu Qingdi, they wouldn't do such an arrogant thing. He did it and took it for granted. However, even the people of Qi Yuan who hated him the most didn't think it was wrong. Lu Qingdi's mood improved a lot. After all, his son was protecting his dignity. He also wanted to throw these people out, but he couldn't because of his status. No matter how high a person's status was, he would still be restrained. After being criticized by Li Honyuan in such a rude way, the former first prince of Wei was a little more rational. However, the people of West Han were not so good-tempered. They looked at Li Honyuan as if they wanted to tear him apart. However, would the king of hell be scared by this kind of look? His eyes were emotionless as he looked back. Gradually, a vicious aura surrounded his body as if it had materialized. His gaze had not changed much, but it was enough to make one's heart jump. The West Han tribe's Right Valley king even uncontrollably took 2 steps back. Because of this action, that Right Valley Li Wang's expression became even worse. However, for some reason, he didn't continue to act out. How should it be said? The feeling that the other princes gave him was that if he didn't stop here, this Qi Yuan prince would take his life. That kind of gaze of being seen as a dead person was too obvious. This king wouldn't care about what others cared about. This king dared to do what others didn't dare to do. The king of West Han held his breath and sat back down. Naturally, the other Han people didn't dare to make a fuss. Even the leader of West Han people, his status wasn't as high as the king of West Han, but he was eloquent. This wasn't a war, so it was better for him to be the leader. His gaze swept over the king of West Han and landed on Li Honyuan. He also remained silent. Li Honyuan withdrew his gaze and continued to watch the show. It seemed that all his attention was attracted to the show. It was as if what just happened didn't happen. The vicious aura around him came and went quickly. Some people around him couldn't help but pat their chests and go back to their positions. However, their eyes still glanced at Li Honyuan from time to time. There was only a wrong name, but there was no wrong nickname. A king of hell with a strong aura was really too terrifying. From the looks of it, he had really restrained himself a lot in the past 2 years. The show continued on the stage while the audience remained silent. There were only a handful of people who were not affected by today's events. Near evening, snow began to fall from the sky again. However, at this time, the scheduled opera time was almost over. Therefore, the heavens really gave Lu Qingdi face today. There was about an hour of free time, followed by the banquet. Jingwan took the opportunity to check on old Madame Luo again. She was afraid that she would catch cold. After all, the north was much colder than the south. Moreover, the palace was different from home. At home, there were servants waiting on her. Even if she went out for a walk, she didn't have to stay outside for too long. Towards the concern of the younger generation, old Madame Luo naturally enjoyed it. She pulled Jingwan's hand. Don't worry about me. In the past, before winter arrived, you would think of all kinds of ways to keep me warm. You couldn't wait to sweat me out in the middle of winter. Last year, wasn't everything fine? Besides, your grandmother, was born in the capital. I've been in the capital for more than 10 years. How could I not adapt? Old Madame Luo had a kind smile. It's you who should not catch a cold. It's not good for your body. Old Madame Luo's hand was warm, so Jingwan was relieved. This is the palace. If you stay outside for a long time, Your hands and feet will easily catch cold. Old Madame Luo smiled with a different meaning. With Jin Wang here, those palace servants will naturally take good care of me. Being teased by her own grandmother. Even if Jingwan's skin was getting thicker and thicker, she couldn't help but blush at this time. Yatoa, you only miss your grandmother. How come I don't see you caring about grandfather? Luo Peishan said with a slightly sour tone from the side. Even if the birthday isn't celebrated every year, there'll be at least several kinds of palace banquets every year. There's no lack of it in the winter. Grandfather has long been used to it. Moreover, your body is healthy, so you naturally don't need me to worry about it. Jingwan chuckled. Luo Darren sighed. It said that only when a child cries, there will be candy to eat. This old person needs to have a little illness and a little disaster to be cared for. What nonsense are you talking about? Quickly shut up. How many people want to have a good body? They can't even ask for it. You're already so old, yet you still want to pretend to be obedient after getting a bargain? Old Madame Luo really wasn't polite. Luo Darren expressed that his old face couldn't hang on. In front of the children, you should at least leave me some face. Face is earned by oneself. Old Madame Luo gave him a sidelong glance. Luo Darren begged for mercy and didn't dare to say any more. He really didn't have any status in front of his wife now. The other members of the Luo family laughed on the side, but didn't say anything. Although their worldview may be a little bit cracked, this kind of harmonious atmosphere was really rare in other families. The grandeur of the banquet didn't lose to the daytime in the slightest, and because of the bright lights, it added to the festive atmosphere. Although it wasn't completely dark and the atmosphere didn't reach the best effect, but in the winter, the sky darkened quickly. Don't look at how bright it was now. It was only a matter of a blink of an eye. After everyone took their seats, Lu Qingdi arrived late, followed by Princess Yining in a splendid dress. No, now it should be called Xian Fei. Previously, Wei Xian Fei had always been wearing exotic clothes. Now that her identity was different, her clothes were naturally different. She put on traditional clothes, suddenly tied up in a high bun, and her hair was full of hair accessories. Her face was completely highlighted, especially her eyes, which looked more lively. No matter what the origin of Wei Xian Fei was, and no matter whether Lu Qingdi liked her now, she was young and beautiful. Men were born with bad habits, so no one could guarantee that one day in the future, Lu Qingdi wouldn't fall in love with her. Therefore, it was natural for the ordinary concubines to be jealous. After all, in a place like the imperial palace, one could only rely on one man. There were 3,000 beauties in the imperial harem, competing for the favor of one person. If one person's favor was more, the others would have less. Some people ate the meat, and the rest might not even be able to drink the soup. In the imperial harem, there were only 2 or 3 who could survive without Lu Qingdi's favor. Even so, they wouldn't push away Lu Qingdi's favor. Jingwan didn't know what state Wei Xian Fei was in after the accident, but looking at her now, she seemed to have adapted well to her new identity. At least on the surface, there wasn't the least bit of reluctance, and there wasn't the least bit of worry. Jingwan leaned closer to Li Hanyuan and lowered her voice. This Wei Xian Fei doesn't look simple, but I don't know if she has perfectly concealed her emotions, or if she just wants to stay in Qiyuan. In the end, she doesn't care who she's with. If it's the latter, then doesn't it mean that our Jin Xinwang's charm isn't as big as expected? There was a bit of ridicule in her words. Because of a skin bag, to like someone, how shallow. It's better to be like Wan Wan. Seeing a person's true nature and being moved is the best. She really grabbed the opportunity to stick gold on her face. There really wasn't anyone else like her. Lu Qingdi's mood seemed to have improved. For a man to receive a beauty who was even a princess of an enemy country, he would feel a bit of superiority. Adding on to his age, after the initial anger, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was in high spirits. Lu Qingdi held his wine cup and stood up. With a bit of passion, he said a few dignified words, and then let everyone enjoy to their heart's content. There were 2 more hot dishes in the evening than during the day. These kinds of dishes that were continuously heated naturally couldn't go bad during the heating process. Jingwan didn't have much appetite, and her mood wasn't very high. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Li Honyuan gently frowned. His eyes unconsciously died with some worry. No, just a bit regretful. I shouldn't have sent it up. Although her words were a bit vague, Li Honyuan understood her meaning. Don't think so much. In the end, it's just a dead object. She may not care. Indeed, it's unreasonable to say this now. After all, I'm still the main culprit. It was she who schemed against the former Princess Wei Yining. When Lu Qingdi missed the imperial Gui Fei, he slept with another woman. His anger only lasted for a short period of time. Now that she was angry, wasn't it taking advantage and still acting innocent? Wan, there are some things that you should be clear about in your heart. Indeed, she was very clear. Not to mention the men with the current background. Even in her previous life, some men kept saying that they loved someone, but it didn't prevent them from having an affair with another woman. Not to mention the emperor of a feudal society. They could think of a dead woman for more than 20 years. They could already be said to be infatuated. Asking them to keep their chastity, that would be the biggest joke. If she still cared about it when she knew it, she would also be a joke. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but pick up the food with her hands a little faster. For no reason, her grief and anger turned into appetite. Li Honyuan looked at Jingwan, who was eating angrily with a bit of childishness inexplicably. In his eyes, she was lovable no matter how he looked at her. The imperial Gui Fei was his biological mother. However, it was impossible for a man like Li Honyuan to have any feelings for a woman he had never met. Therefore, he didn't care about Lu Qingdi at all. He didn't care whether it was blasphemy to the dead imperial Gui Fei or not. What he cared about was only Jingwan. Li Honyuan turned his head and waved to Eunuch Mu. Eunuch Mu hurried to him. Master, asked the imperial kitchen to prepare a bowl of antique soup. Jingwan looked up when she heard that. Why do you want that? Antique soup, in fact, was the hot pot of Jingwan's previous life. It got its name from the sound of the food being thrown into the boiling water. In Qiyuan, antique soup was actually not very presentable. Moreover, in this current situation, Jin Wang, can you restrain yourself a little? Bin Wang suddenly wants to eat it. Wan, do you have any objections? Li Honyuan hooked his lips and smiled. Jingwan silently retracted her line of sight. In front of so many people, was it necessary to break the rules like this? As long as you're happy. https://11/118007/8123362. Mobile Edition. Chapter 411. What suggestions does Wan have? Li Honyuan calmly asked. Jingwan raised her head to look at him, rather puzzled. What do you need me to suggest? The things made by the imperial kitchen must be excellent. It's just that this husband heard that Wan is very good at eating antique soup with a variety of flavors. Why? Don't you want to make it for this husband to try? Li Honyuan was sad. Jingwan was a member of the foodie nation in her previous life, so things like hot pot naturally didn't need to be mentioned. Although it was said that hot pot was more concentrated in some places, but in fact, it was available all over the country. The ways and types of eating were naturally varied, and it really wasn't something that the antique soup of today could compare to. Eating hot pot in the winter was indeed good, and in ancient times there was no need to worry about this and that. Occasionally eating it would be very satisfying. Although Jingwan hadn't eaten it in Jin Wangfu yet, but there would definitely be. It was something that would happen sooner or later. Where did Wanya hear this from? Where did Wan think you heard it from? I thought that there were some things that Wan should have known earlier. Li Hongyuan's expression was faint. He seemed to be even sadder that his wife was so incomprehensible. The super handsome man's bright and beautiful sadness at 45 degrees was absolutely lethal. However, Jingwan, who was more adaptable now, just wanted to slap his face. From the interactions after marriage, a certain someone deliberately tried to understand her preferences and other aspects before marriage. In the current context, this kind of thing was generally the woman's patent, especially when a woman married into a higher position. Therefore, when Jingwan initially realized what Li Honyuan did, she was a bit flattered. Of course, because of his behavior before marriage, Jingwan was not particularly surprised. But now, Purely speaking, Jingwan was a bit embarrassed and in anger. Mu Gonggong stood at the side, quietly waiting for Wang Fei's orders. At the same time, his eyes and ears were alert, constantly watching his Wang Ye and Wang Fei, but he absolutely couldn't make it obvious and affect the two people. In this way, if they had any orders, he would be the first to know. It should be known that as a qualified henchman, he had to make his master feel considerate, and at the same time, he had to be able to seal off his six senses at the right time. What he didn't dare to listen to, what he shouldn't look at, was absolutely a skill that required long-term training. Mu Gonggong had now practiced it to perfection. Jingwan just moved her hand slightly, and Mu Gonggong immediately stepped forward. Since the King of Hell wanted to eat the antique soup, Jingwan, in the name of the King of Hell, began to order dishes without hesitation, including all kinds of meat, vegetables, bean products, mushrooms, eggs, and so on. She could have added seafood, but in the north, seafood was not fresh, only dried fish. In addition, there were requirements for the processing of some things, such as beef. Ordinary people couldn't eat it easily, and it was even illegal to slaughter cattle privately. However, it was not a big deal for the royal family to eat it, not to mention the plate presentation. According to Jingwan, she wanted to make the antique soup, which was not so good in the eyes of the people of Qiyuan, high-end and classy. Jingwan had so many requirements, and Mu Gonggong remembered them all in his mind. Therefore, a good memory was also one of the necessary skills for an excellent henchman. Just as Mu Gonggong was about to leave, he was stopped by Gong Mama, but she was talking to Jingwan. "Princess, there are 2 or 3 ingredients in the soup just now. Although it's not a big deal, it's better not to eat them together." Jingwan thought for a while. How should she put it? In fact, Nanny Gong had told her about this from time to time in the past few years. But obviously, she still hadn't learned everything. "Nanny, why don't you go with Muin? If there's something good, we can ask the Imperial Kitchen to prepare some more. If it's not good enough, we won't take it." "Yes," Gong Mama answered. The things in the palace were not good. Jingwan had the confidence to say these words after marrying into Jin Qin Wang Fu. Mu Gonggong was a little unhappy about being robbed of his job. However, she was the princess's most capable mama, so he didn't dare to show any emotion. He just secretly decided that after he went back, he must find time to learn another skill. Not to mention learning pharmacology, at least in terms of food, he must not be robbed halfway when he was working for the princess. Gong Momo glanced at Mu Gonggong. To be honest, after she went to serve Jingwan, she was also by the side of the living King of Hell. Naturally, she also had some dealings with this Jin Qin Wang Fu steward. Gong Momo felt that this person sometimes had a problem. In his mind, other than thinking of pleasing his master, he didn't think of anything else. However, Muin was absolutely loyal, and he would never be careless about the things he should do. Therefore, Gong Mama naturally didn't bother to pay attention to him. The chief steward of the Imperial Kitchen was quite familiar with Mu Gonggong. When Prince Jin hadn't left the palace yet, he dealt with him almost every day. In the past few years, he basically hadn't seen him. However, the shadow left in his heart was so strong that it couldn't be erased in a lifetime. Of course, the real culprit was actually Li Hongyuan. Therefore, it could be imagined that before Li Hongyuan left the palace, he was a complete devil incarnate, Gue Jianshou. At this moment, seeing Mu Gonggong, the chief steward of the Imperial Kitchen's heart jumped, but he put on a smile on his face and spoke and acted cautiously. "Greetings to Gonggong. What can I do for you?" He glanced at Gong Mama, who looked quite serious and upright. "My eyes are bad. Who is this?" "Our princess's maid. Don't talk too much. Our Wanya wants to eat antique soup. Quickly prepare it." The chief steward of the Imperial Kitchen had no place to express the bitterness in his heart. Now, Prince Jin's illustrious reputation had reached a higher level. Before he left the palace and was bestowed the title of prince, the chief steward of the Imperial Kitchen usually looked a bit dignified. But in front of those noble lords, he was nothing. In front of Li Hongyuan, he was like a quail. Not to mention now, let alone eating antique soup. Even if he wanted to eat a bear's heart and leopard's gall, he had to find a way to immediately prepare it. Therefore, no matter how bitter it was, nimble actions were the way of the king. No problem. A lot of pots have been prepared since the beginning of winter. This one will immediately have someone take them out. It's just, what kind of side dishes does Gong Gong need? Let's go to the storeroom. I want to take a look. Gong Mama timely opened her mouth and then asked for the bottom of the pot. Yes, yes, yes. You too. Please follow this one. On one hand, she led the way, and on the other hand, she called more than a dozen palace maids and eunuchs to follow along so that it would be convenient to take things later. The imperial kitchen's inventory was naturally quite rich. It could be said that there was everything that one could think of. It was divided into categories, whether it was dry or fresh, whether it was meat or vegetables, whether it was semi-finished products or finished products. However, it was winter, so the amount of fresh vegetables would certainly not be much. At this time, it had completely become Gong Mama's home ground. While walking, she ordered how much she wanted, how to handle it. Everything was concisely explained. From time to time, she would personally check the ingredients, whether they were satisfied or dissatisfied. Mu Gong Gong completely became a foil, just like a small attendant, aggrieved by the side. However, he was not completely brooding. It should be known that now was a good opportunity to secretly learn. The banquet was long enough, but Gong Mama did not want to let Wang Ye and Wang Fei wait too long. Therefore, her actions were very fast. Because her eyes were sharp enough, there was no situation where she would order something bad. After this round, she was basically done. The things that she ordered earlier were simple and easy to make and were all prepared. Gong Mama washed her hands carefully and checked them again. Those that were not up to standard were all sent back. Then, she took the ingredients and came back again. In this way, whether it was the chief steward or the junior stewards under him, they did not dare to ask the palace maids and eunuchs to do it. They all did it themselves. When everything was done and Gong Mama was satisfied, it took about half an hour. This was already a very fast speed, but Gong Mama still disliked it. As a result, the people in the imperial kitchen were a little stiff for fear that they would annoy her. In fact, the imperial kitchen was the same as the imperial physician. They were both high-risk occupations. However, although Gong Mama was a little strict, she was not a person who deliberately found fault to prove her superiority. Okay, send it to Qianshan Hall. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. There were more than a dozen people, and each person carried 1, 2, or 4 dishes, depending on the size of the plate. When Mu Gong Gong saw the 2 copper pots, he frowned. Who asked me to prepare 2 pots? I only want 1. On the same table, eating separately from Wang Fei. If he really took it back like this, even if Master didn't peel off his skin, he would definitely not have a good look. If he made this kind of small mistake twice, he could go back to the furnace and start anew. The people in the imperial kitchen looked at each other in dismay. However, since the people around Jinqin Wang said so, it was definitely right to do it. After all, if there was a mistake, these 2 people had to be together. They removed 1 pot and quickly sent it over. Mu Gong Gong quickly followed, but Gong Mama lagged behind a little. She waited until all the things were taken away before she followed. Inadvertently, she glanced back and saw that not far away, a chicken was being cooked. Looking at it, it should be a consort who wanted it. If it was cooked now, it would be just right to drink it when the banquet was over. Gong Mama did not pay much attention to it and directly left the imperial kitchen. Although all the imperial kitchen did not go through the main door, there were so many people. Moreover, at this time, the dishes had not been served, so it was not too obvious. All the original dishes on the table were removed. The copper pot was placed at a place not far from the 2 people. Various side dishes were placed in a circle around it. As there was not enough space, another table was added. It was a dazzling array of things. The plate arrangement was also quite exquisite, although it was regarded as something not very presentable. In Jingwan's view, it was still quite good. It was just that she did not notice it when she ordered it. Now that it was on the table, wasn't it a bit too much? Moreover, more than half of it was added by Gong Mama. However, Jingwan then thought that it seemed that the one sitting at the head of the table had breakfast. There were various kinds of snacks, rice, porridge, pickled vegetables, fat chicken with mushrooms, 3 fresh duck, 5 pieces of chicken, shredded chicken, stewed meat, stewed tripe with persimmon, stewed meat with cabbage, braised mutton with spinach and tofu, stewed donkey with cabbage, sliced lamb with Sichuan radish, duck strips with sea cucumber, duck diced with Gaussian rice, roasted ibaraki mushrooms, stewed pork slices with pork slices, fried spring rolls, fried pork with chives, smoked pork belly, braised tofu, smoked shredded vegetables, stir-fried shredded cabbage with pepper oil, dried 5 spices, sacrificial meat slices, soup, boiled celery, cooked white meat, and so on. According to the season, there would be various changes. Tofu and other things were not so wasteful. But chicken, duck, and fish were not so wasteful, because often only a small part was taken, such as duck tongue and grouper cheek meat. To make a plate, how many ducks and fish would it take? Speaking of which, Emperor Lu Qingdi was a relatively frugal emperor. However, he had at least 30 to 40 dishes for every meal. As long as people were invited to eat or on more formal occasions, it was normal to have more than 100 dishes. For example, today, there were more than a dozen dishes on the table, but they were changed at least 4 times. It could be imagined how many things were wasted. And there were not many people who could eat these things. Most of them were flashy but not practical, expensive but not beneficial, and tasteless. To put it bluntly, there was really no practical use except for putting on a show. Every time she encountered such a banquet, Jingwan could not help but complain in her heart. It was not that she was petty, but it was really too wasteful. Moreover, who would dare to say that the things wasted were not good? Many people wanted to eat them, but they could not even smell the smell. The people in the palace were divided into different ranks. Don't think that others would use the leftovers after the higher-ups used it. That was a dream. After experiencing so much, she couldn't help but be calm. In comparison, there weren't many side dishes. Moreover, Jingwan truly felt that this antique soup was actually a more frugal way of eating. The fish was sliced whole, and the vegetables weren't just the core. Saying that it wasn't classy was definitely a rumor. In the history of her previous life, in a certain dynasty, during the winter, the emperor would basically serve a table of hot pot every day. On a certain birthday, he even used hot pot to hold a banquet for more than 5,000 people. How could this not be classy? In the palace banquet in winter, everyone ate more hot pot and let the living king of hell blow the wind for his father. Even Emperor Lu Qingdi said it was good. How could the subordinates dare to say no? When Emperor Lu Qingdi was gone, there was still the living king of hell. As the saying goes, subordinates follow the example of superiors. Even if it was not good, it had to be good. In a day, their table had become the focus of attention many times, so they did not feel anything when they were surrounded again. Jingwan calmly began to cook the food with her own hands. Naturally, she did not forget a certain someone who was waiting to eat at the side. A certain someone was a carnivore. In the prince's mansion, Jingwan also forced him to eat a lot of vegetables. Tonight, she would satisfy him and let him eat more meat. Speaking of which, unless one really did not like hot pot, eating hot pot was definitely the time when one ate vegetables the most. Being served by his wife, Li Hongyuan naturally did not refuse. After all, he practiced martial arts all year round. So when he ate freely, his appetite was definitely not small. Perhaps Li Hongyuan's appetite was really good. At least, Lu Qingdi had never seen him eat so much. In the past, when he occasionally ate with his father, the number of times he stretched out his chopsticks was limited. Lu Qingdi really did not notice the things about other sons in this aspect. The son he cared about the most had a more obvious change, so he had to pay attention. Old 6, do you like antique soup? Li Hongyuan slowly put the slices of meat on his chopsticks in his mouth, chewing carefully and swallowing slowly. Then, he gave Lu Qingdi a look. At least it feels good now. He was just giving face to his wife. Whether or not his son liked it after this meal, Lu Qingdi was very happy now. Come, ask the imperial kitchen to prepare a portion for me. Following the example, the imperial kitchen was naturally very fast this time. The other dishes in front of Lu Qingdi were all removed. Lu Qingdi naturally did not need to do it himself. There was a sea of people who were willing to serve him. If possible, those concubines would roll up their sleeves themselves. Lu Qingdi excitedly picked up the slices of meat that the servant put in the bowl after the rinsing. Well, it did not taste good, but he still swallowed it. However, Shi Xian glanced at her son faintly, wondering in her heart, "Well, what is it? When my son used to eat with me, he did not eat much because of his unique taste. To continue eating or not to eat, this was the problem. But since it was already served, if he did not eat, would it embarrass her son?" Many people noticed Lu Qingdi's subtle expression. Many people who were ready to eat gave up, no matter whether they thought it was good or not. If the emperor did not think it was good, they could not eat it. Li Hongyuan remained indifferent and continued to eat at a leisurely pace. Jingwan looked at Lu Qingdi and said with a smile, "Father, the heat is very important when eating antique soup. Why don't you ask an imperial chef to cook it? Their control of the heat is unparalleled. The food they cook will definitely taste the best." Lu Qingdi showed an expression of sudden realization. "I was wondering why the taste of the meat was a bit strange. I thought it was because of the different cooking methods. So it was because of this. Son of a bitch, you don't know how to show off. Why don't you ask the imperial chef to cook it?" It was the son of a bitch's fault that he almost embarrassed his son. The chamberlain hurriedly apologized and felt a chill in his heart. This matter could be considered small or big. It completely depended on what Lu Qingdi thought. It would not flare up now, but in the future, the consequences were simply unimaginable. Although the people in the imperial kitchen served the masters of the entire palace, what they cared about the most was the honor of the emperor. Just a word of praise, and they would be rewarded greatly. When they reached a certain age, they would be able to leave the palace. With these rewards, they would be able to live the rest of their lives in luxury. If they opened a restaurant or worked for some other high official or noble and took in a satisfactory disciple, everything would be perfect. Of course, the premise was that they did not encounter any shady affairs in the palace. If they did, it was very likely that they would lose their heads. There were very few opportunities to serve in front of the emperor, even as the head steward of the imperial kitchen. Therefore, he was both excited and nervous when he got such an opportunity. If he served the emperor well, there would be benefits, but if he didn't, he might be punished. None of the people present were people that a little chef like him could afford to offend. Therefore, he naturally had to do his own thing honestly. Although at this time, it was actually very easy to take advantage of others. However, those who had a little bit of brains would not easily appear. After the person serving him changed, Lu Qingdi tasted it again. Well, the taste was really good. Lu Qingdi expressed that he also liked the food that his son liked to eat and ate happily. No matter what the reason was, some of the concubines and some princes also asked for a share. Then, Lu Qingdi waved his hand, and all the envoys and courtiers from other countries also got a share. Anyway, none of them occupied 2 tables. It was already good enough if there were more than 5 people at a table for 10 people. That's right. No matter how many people there were, each table had a portion. Everyone had a portion. Haha. Therefore, when it came to following the trend, the imperial palace was the most popular and the fastest. If the superior said it was good, then it would be good even if it was not good. Hot pot was something that could be cooked and eaten immediately. After a long time, one would be covered in sweat. Needless to say, it was very satisfying. As for those who disliked the strong smell or felt uncomfortable sweating, there was no need to bother about it. Therefore, what was supposed to be a banquet filled with toast became eating and eating. Lu Qingdi was also delighted. His previous displeasure seemed to have been thrown out of his mind. Even when facing Wei Xianfei, he was quite happy. Time passed bit by bit. The bright lights and a harmonious atmosphere made the palace banquet seem to have a touch of humanity. However, Your Highness Imperial Concubine Shu, a scream instantly broke the joyous atmosphere. Everyone looked over in an instant. Qin Shu Fei's face was pale, and she had fainted. The table in front of her was covered in blood. It was obvious that she first vomited blood and then fainted. The whole process was very fast. Lu Qingdi stood up and rushed forward. He took Qin Shu Fei from the hands of a palace maid. Seeing her appearance, he was shocked and angry. Call the imperial physician. In order to prevent accidents, the imperial physician was on standby at all times. Therefore, he came very quickly. The imperial physician hurriedly took her pulse. His heart was beating fast, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. He did not dare to jump to a conclusion and carefully looked at her. Your Majesty, what's the matter? Speak quickly." Lu Qingdi would not allow him to hesitate. "Your Majesty, Imperial concubine Shu is showing signs of being poisoned." The imperial physician trembled and said, "Poison?" Lu Qingdi's voice rose. Whether it was his tone or his expression, it was very frightening. Everyone present was shocked, and their hearts couldn't help but beat faster. How could someone suddenly be poisoned at the birthday banquet? No one would think that it was an accident. It was 100% man-made. But who was so bold to poison her at this time? Enqin Shufei. Was someone else's target, or did she unintentionally become an unlucky scapegoat? What are you waiting for? Quickly think of a way to cure Imperial concubine Shu. Your Majesty, to cure her, we must first know what poison Imperial concubine Shu was poisoned with. More and more cold sweat appeared on his forehead, but he did not dare to wipe it away. Lu Qingdi turned his head and stared at the people beside Qin Shufei like a malicious ghost. "What did your master eat just now?" The person who had been serving Qin Shufei and tasting her food, as well as the person from the imperial kitchen, quickly knelt down. "Your Majesty, Imperial concubine drank 2 mouthfuls of chicken soup just now." The half bowl of chicken soup was still on the table. The oil on the surface had been wiped clean. The chicken soup looked relatively clear. Perhaps Qin Shufei was not so close when she first acted up. Looking at the position of the bowl, she seemed to have deliberately pushed it further away. It was not knocked over. Perhaps she had already realized that there was something wrong with the chicken soup. When the imperial physician heard this, he hurriedly went forward to check. However, the results were unexpected. There was no problem with the soup, and the spoon used to drink it was also fine. After coming to this conclusion, the palace maid in charge of tasting the food also said, "Your Majesty, this servant has tasted Imperial concubine soup. She was perfectly fine, so it was definitely not a problem with the chicken soup. Immediately check all of these things, including the dishes that were removed from the table." "Yes." The imperial physician responded and did not dare to be negligent. He checked the dishes one by one. The truth was that the antique soup base and the food that Qin Shufei had eaten were all fine. As for the dishes that had been removed from the banquet, other than the last round, the previous ones had been taken care of. The leftover dishes of the masters would be secretly shared by the servants. This was a well-known consensus. The food that the nobles were not willing to eat was something that the palace servants could not get even if they begged for it. The leftover ingredients were all in the imperial kitchen, so they did not dare to touch them. However, the cooked food was different. They quickly stuffed it into their mouths, swallowed it, and wiped their mouths with a swipe of their mouths. Regardless of whether those people ate secretly or openly, they were all fine. Up until now, the only one who was in trouble was Qin Shufei. Of course, it cannot be ruled out that someone had already gotten rid of the poisoned food. Was there any poison that could be induced by the chicken soup that could not be detected under normal circumstances? Someone raised this question. Obviously, there was no such thing. They could not find the source of the poison and did not know what kind of poison it was. The imperial physician was also helpless. He could only do his best to prevent the poison from entering the lungs. Lu Qingdi's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He sent Qin Shufei back to Sweet Dew Palace in order that the things in Thousand Years Hall were not to be touched. The people of Thousand Years Hall were not to enter or leave for the time being. The commander of the Imperial Guards would investigate this matter. Some people were terrified. Naturally, there were also people who were indifferent. It was just that, basically, no one ate anymore. Who knew if there were any problems in these things? Qin Shufei worked for Jinqin Wang, and her temperament was very good. Many people in the palace liked her. Standing in Jingwan's position, she also did not want anything to happen to Qin Shufei. It was just that this matter revealed a lot of strangeness. Everything was fine then. Jingwan's heart suddenly moved. Wang Ye, is it possible that Shufei Nyang had been poisoned long ago? When the poison flared up, could it be that it was not a simple chicken soup, but some kind of medicine that was placed in the chicken soup? Compared to other people, Li Honyuan acted as if nothing had happened and continued to leisurely drink wine. That appearance, even Jingwan felt that he was asking for a beating. Wang Ya, Li Hongyuan's line of sight, fell on Jingwan's face. Wang Fei's guess is not impossible. Ask the Imperial Kitchen about Xu Fei Nyongyang's diet, and we will know. Although there was such a guess, in the end, this matter was not under their jurisdiction, so they let Mu Gonggong inform Yu Zhongqing. Originally, there were no clues, but this guess undoubtedly provided a direction. Therefore, Yu Zhongqing brought people to the Imperial Kitchen. Not long after they left, Lu Qingdi's personal chamberlain hurried over. Greetings to Wang Ya. Wang Ya, His Majesty's verbal order is for you to send people to invite your Fu's physician into the palace. The other imperial physicians, whether inside or outside the palace, had already been called. But Qin Shu Fei's current situation was not optimistic. Lu Qingdi thought of Gong Jiao. Since he saved Kong Qinwang's heir and also examined the Empress, his medical skills were naturally excellent. Although there were specializations, and people with good medical skills may not be proficient in poisons, but what if he could do it? As long as there was some hope, it was best not to give up and not to delay time. Therefore, Lu Qingdi was straightforward. Li Honyuan certainly would not refuse this kind of thing and let Mu Gonggong leave the palace immediately. Wang Ya, His Majesty's meaning is for you and Wang Fei to go to the Sweet Dew Palace. Li Hongyuan's eyebrows and eyes were cold, without any expression, but Jingwan's face showed surprise. Obviously, she had some doubts about this. Even if one of his sons was to go, it should be the Gong Qinwang. After all, on the surface, Qin Shu Fei could be considered to be standing behind the Gong Qinwang. Let's go. Li Honyuan obviously didn't care at all, and didn't think about whether there was any deeper meaning in this. Ben Wang will also go. They didn't deliberately lower their voices, so the people around them heard it. The Gong Qinwang's request was reasonable. This, Lu Qingdi's chamberlain hesitated. After all, the emperor only called Jin Qinwang. Although Ben Wang was not formally raised by Shu Fei, Ben Wang was basically raised in the Sweet Dew Palace before he was conferred the title of prince. Half an adopted son is not excessive. Now that Shu Fei's situation is unknown, Ben Wang wants to go and take a look. What's wrong with that? Even if Imperial Father knew, he would definitely agree. His words weren't radical, but it could be said that they were sincere. However, his expression didn't allow for any discussion. Obviously, even if this chamberlain didn't agree, he would still follow. The chamberlain saw that Jin Qinwang had already walked away and didn't care about them at all. He simply followed, ignoring the Gong Qinwang, as if he didn't hear anything. The Gong Qinwang's face was gloomy. That chamberlain was blatantly cutting ties with him. If he followed, he would be completely acting on his own initiative. However, he had already said that, if he didn't go, it would inevitably be seen as hypocritical. Therefore, he could only bite the bullet and follow, pulling his Wang Fei along. As Qin Shu Fei's niece, she was worried about her aunt, so if she went to take a look, no one would think that it was wrong. However, it was obvious that she was thinking too much. When they arrived at the Sweet Dew Palace, Lu Qingdi didn't appear at all. The Sweet Dew Palace servants were serving tea. The two Qinwang and the two Wang Fei were sitting quietly. The atmosphere was too heavy. The Gong Qinwang wanted to speak several times, but after opening her mouth, she had no choice but to close it. It wasn't until Yu Zhongqing came over and reported to Lu Qingdi that Lu Qingdi came out from the inner hall. His face showed obvious fatigue. Is there any progress? Yu Zhongqing recounted his conjecture based on Jin Qinwang's conjecture, and then went to investigate the Imperial Kitchen. However, the results of the investigation were still disappointing. Qin Shu Fei's food had always been from the Imperial Kitchen. The Sweet Dew Palace's small kitchen usually only made some snacks, and Qin Shu Fei would drink a bowl of chicken soup every day. This had been going on for several years, and the ingredients for the soup would only be changed once in a year or so. Moreover, they were all prescriptions written by the Imperial Doctor. Every prescription could be found from the Imperial Doctor. The current ingredients had already been used for 3 to 4 months, and there had been no problems. Among the concubines, those with a bit of status would have their pulse checked every once in a while. The higher their status, the shorter the interval. Other people might have their pulse checked regularly, but Qin Shu Fei's pulse was not fixed. Whoever was free would go, and there was no pattern. Qin Shu Fei's health had always been good, and there was nothing wrong with her. Every imperial doctor's result was similar. If there was a slow-acting poison in her body that no one could detect, it was basically impossible for it to exist. Therefore, this path was still not very clear. Such a result made Lu Chengdi angry and irritable. As the emperor, he was naturally suspicious. If he could not find the source of Qin Shu Fei's poisoning, Lu Chengdi would definitely suspect that the original target of the poisoning was him. Even if it was not him, would it be possible that he would be unknowingly poisoned in the future? If it was anyone else, they would definitely not tolerate this. Investigate, continue to investigate. Even if you have to turn the entire palace upside down, you must find out everything. Yes, other than this word, Yu Zhongqing clearly had nothing else to say. He could only rejoice that Lu Chengdi was still rational and did not start a massacre out of anger. One had to know that there were too many people trembling in fear, especially the people in the imperial kitchen. They felt as if a knife was placed on their necks, and if the situation was slightly off, it would mercilessly fall. Gong Jiu entered the palace quickly. At this time, he did not care about any taboos. After seeing Lu Chengdi, he directly went to the inner hall. Gong Jiu's medical skills were very good. In fact, his poison skills were even better. He used silver needles to check Qin Shu Fei's condition. He took out 5 needles from Qin Shu Fei's body. After taking out the needles, he looked at them carefully and sniffed them. Not only that, he even used the tip of his tongue to lick the needles. The people around him, including Lu Qing Emperor, were all shocked. This was poison. Wasn't he afraid that he would also be poisoned? After inserting 5 needles, Gong Jiu repeated the same action 5 times. Your Majesty, the result is out. Lu Chengdi's face lit up. Really? How is the situation? Can it be cured? It can. Although it is a little troublesome, this commoner can ensure that concubine Shu Fei is fine. That's good, that's good. Lu Chengdi's eyebrows relaxed a little. When the Empress suddenly fell ill, he cared and was nervous because if the Empress died, things would be very troublesome. He did not have any feelings for the Empress. However, Qin Shu Fei was different. She was basically the opposite of the Empress. He did not like Qin Shu Fei, but Qin Shu Fei was a quiet and gentle woman. She could always calm him down under some negative emotions. Therefore, Qin Shu Fei was a relatively special existence to him. His heart calmed down a little. Since you know what poison it is, can you also find out how concubine Shu Fei was poisoned? Replying to your Majesty, this is not certain. This poison is a little strange. It can be used as the final medicine, but it is also a semi-finished product. This semi-finished product can be 2 or 3 different kinds. There are many variations, but the final result is the same. Once it is separated, it is basically impossible to find the poison. Hearing this, Lu Chengdi was a little discouraged. However, as long as the poison could be cured, it was not the worst result. How about this? You first stabilize concubine Shu Fei's condition, then go and check. Who knows, there might be unexpected results. Yes, Gong Jiu did not use any ready-made medicine to decipher the poison. He directly gave Qin Shu Fei acupuncture to control the poison. The whole process was very fast. It only took a few breaths of time. Looking at Gong Jiu's movements, it seemed that this was enough. Just like that, Lu Chengdi could not believe it. Replying to your Majesty, as long as the silver needles are not used, concubine Shu Fei's condition can be guaranteed for 12 hours. Today is your Majesty's birthday. It is said that the banquet is not over yet. This commoner thinks that we should first investigate the cause of concubine Shu Fei's poisoning so that we can explain it to the envoys of other countries. You are right. Come with me. After leaving the inner hall, Gong Jiu greeted Li Hongyuan, the real master, and hurriedly left. Li Hongyuan responded indifferently. Only then did Lu Chengdi realize that he hadn't told the person who would use his son. However, thinking about it, that was his son, Wasn't it natural for a father to use his son's person? Therefore, in an instant, he became self-righteous again. Li Hanyuan was too lazy to see what he was like. Speaking of which, this did not happen in his previous life. Therefore, Li Hanyuan also did not know what was going on. However, everything had a cause and effect. This matter could not be forgotten quietly. Li Hanyuan himself would not allow such a thing to happen. Gong Jiu first went to check the pot of chicken soup in the imperial kitchen. This time, Lu Qingdi even came in person. If he knew who was causing trouble inside, he would make sure that he died without a burial place. https:///11/11807/8189879. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.